Hey guys, I'm here with the legend Houston Alexander. How you doing today?
Oh man, I don't know about the legend part, but I'm Houston Alexander though.
The fighting pioneer of MMA. You were in there for a while, and fought some of the best. So I don't know. I'd say it's a legend.
Well,
Um,
man, hey, but I appreciate the status, man. But there's other people more deserving. So, but I appreciate it though.
are you still a fan of MMA today? Well, that's one of my first
And
questions.
no, I watch a lot of MMA, man, and every once in a while, I might dabble into into an event myself. But I mean, I've been keeping up with a lot of the newer cats that are in the UFC and even outside the UFC, man. There's a lot of good people out there.
It's good to see like you fought in Bellator and UFC, and I'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, it's kind of nice to see like for a bit it was UFC was like the only that was the top of the chain. Like
yeah.
it's nice to see. Like, did you watch the event this weekend?
I saw parts of it, but the Conor McGregor deal, I saw that, well, and I think it was the Portier,
Yeah. Well,
Portier, yeah,
yeah,
Portier, I believe that's his name. Yeah,
yeah, it was I thought it was a great fight. But it's nice to see like people from Bellator, like Michael Chandler. I don't know if that rings a bell. He had a great showing this
yeah,
weekend.
yeah. But a lot of people are either going here or there, but it's good, man. It's just like the NFL and Canadian football, man. It is the same thing. It's just good to have a choice, an organization to go to.
Absolutely, and it's good to see that a person from Bellator could come and beat the elite in the UFC. Um,
Yeah.
One of my questions I wanted to ask was did you enjoy your time in the UFC or Bellator more? Was there a preference?
You know what, man? If you've been around MMA as long as I have, man, to me it's all the same.
Yeah,
You get signed, and I guess there's certain moments where you see differences in status, but
yeah,
to me it's all the same, man. I'm the
yeah,
wrong person. I'm the wrong person to ask. I've seen it all.
absolutely, yeah.
Uh,
You're close to 40 fights, I'm pretty sure now, right?
I've been and no. See, that's the thing. Before YouTube and before all this, the Instagram and all that, man, I've had close to 200 fights.
Oh, so we haven't even seen half the fights.
And you haven't even if you would have saw half the fight that got us there, those are the fights you wanted to see.
Yeah, it wasn't. So you're saying, would you like to say that the biggest moment of your career was when you got to knock out Keith Jardine? Because I know Keith Jardine was kind of being hyped at the time, and you kind of just stopped him in his tracks. Is that one of the biggest moments of
No,
your
no,
career?
and see that was cool, man. But see again, I'm by the time I got to him, I was already several fights into it, and I think one of my best moments was when I slammed a guy in the ring and broke the board.
Oh wow.
That was in Des Moines, Iowa. So if you really wanted to get down and gritty, one of my best performances, that was probably one of my best performances, slamming a guy so hard that the board that sets the ring up broke in half.
Is that on YouTube by any chance?
Man, that is, I'm telling you, man. But see, here's the thing. There's people that filmed that night, but they were like VHS type
Exactly.
tape. The old school way of videotaping at the time. And there was the production company sent me a couple of fights, I believe, on VHS, and I took my phone and I actually
Record.
kind of recorded it and kind of and put it on online a few times. And man, if any of those fights resurfaced, man, at the time, people would see how we got there because the UFC they weren't going to let us fight because they didn't know that we had all the experience because
So,
we didn't have no tape out there.
so you were fighting professionally, I guess. What 2001? I think your
Yeah,
first.
hey, I've been fighting since 2001, man.
Okay, so were you fighting before that though? What got you into fighting?
Oh man, I'm a street fighter. I was one of those kids you didn't mess around with, man. You couldn't bully me because I'm originally from East St. Louis, Illinois, and there's some tough kids there in the school system. So either you got ran over or you stood up for yourself. And I was in my pedigree, my family, we didn't let people bully us. And so I've always been that fighter, man. I've always been that guy who handled himself well.
Yeah. Looking back on, I was told to ask you a question. Uh,
Yeah.
Looking back, what did you think of your Kimbo Slice fight? I actually recently watched it, and people
Okay.
make it out to be like I thought it was a lot closer than it was made
Thank,
out to be.
thank you.
But there is an argument that you could have won that fight in this decision, but people seem to think that because Kimbo that he won. What are your thoughts on that?
Now, are you watching it through the eyes of someone experienced now, or are you watching it as a fan?
I'm watching it as I was observing it. So,
Okay. I see
when I
because
watched it, I thought it was closer.
yeah, because if you look at it, the first round, and a lot of people ask me about the Kimbo fight because we had a game plan, and as a fighter, I had to follow the game plan because I could have easily brawled, and we could have been these two fighters going at each other, brawling it out, and I'm sure that's what they wanted. But what we tried to do was circling him, and you see a lot of guys doing that now. See, we was
Yeah,
kind of ahead of our time. What are they doing now? They're circling. They're not staying in front of the guy.
exactly.
So we're circling out because that's what boxers do. Boxers don't stay right there in front of each other. And on top of that, back then I don't think they counted our kicks.
Yeah,
Kicks are strikes. So how many times they hit me? Maybe 3 or 4 times the whole entire fight.
yeah,
Maybe. And how many times did I kick him? I kicked him. I struck him. I struck the body all fight.
yeah,
All, and so even in the first round, if you go watch it after me describing it, we tried to bait him in. See,
yeah,
us circling him, we tried to bait him in because if he would have came in, we had a counter for him.
yes.
We was gonna hit him with the elbow because we knew
And
we would, and I got him with the elbow at the end of the fight,
yeah,
but he didn't take the bait. If you look, Brady, he's just standing there in the first round with his hands up.
yeah, he
He
didn't do
didn't
too
do nothing.
no.
So no one gets on this individual fighter for him just standing there like this. So I'm circling this guy, hitting him, circling and hitting him, and all he's doing is standing there. We wanted to bait him in, so we had a plan. Okay, if we hit this guy, we're gonna bait you in, and he just stood there.
Yeah, he didn't do too much. I had it up 2-1 for you actually when I watched it. Do you think is that what you would say the
He
scorecard
got
should have?
one takedown. He got one takedown, and of course the UFC mat it was pretty thick. So man, I didn't and I'm a b-boy. I'm a break dancer. So
Yeah,
I've hurt myself probably worse breakdancing than I did getting put down on the ground. But see, no one noticed two things they didn't notice. When I got out bad, it got in a bad position. How I got out and went through the back door of
yeah,
Kimbo. So I went and got right back up. And second round, when he tried to take me down again, how he failed and I ended up on top of him. Now
yeah,
this is a part of the round, and by the time I was on the ground, if I would have had 15 more seconds in that second round,
mm,
I was going to pommel him while he was on. I was on top of him, and I
yeah,
had and right before the bell rang, I had my fist right to go at it. If I would have
yeah,
had 15 more seconds in the second round, it would have been done. So
yeah,
those are and so you have to watch it. And again, people wanted us to brawl it out, but we had a game plan. And now that the judging has changed, they're counting kicks now. As you can see with Conor, he was getting kicked in that, and that thigh, he was getting kicked in that calf. Those are strikes. Those are
yeah.
not just pity pats. As you can see, that man couldn't walk. Kimbo couldn't walk. After my fight, I walked out of there. Kimbo couldn't walk. He needed a chair. He needed a wheelchair. So
If I remember correctly, you could tell me if I'm wrong.
yeah,
There was a little bit of heat between you guys in the fight, right? Like the lead
that was,
up.
man. You know what? I'm gonna tell you something. And there was no beef. There was nothing. Matter of fact, I remember because I'm a solo guy. I don't need a whole entourage. He
Yeah,
had his entourage at the time, and I remember walking in the hallway and seeing him. And I went solo. I went up to his crew solo, and and all his guys were like, "Oh shit!" And then Kimbo saw me and he waved me over. So you
yeah,
gotta respect the man. I don't need an entourage. You got your entourage. That's all good because you're popular at the time. But we spoke. talked to him. I was like, hey, appreciate you, etc. How's your family doing? There was nothing, man. There's nothing personal there. So we was good. We was cool.
So everything was good after the fight too. Did you guys have a beer?
We was probably more tired than anything. So yeah, man. But it was cool. But I at least thought that we could have got a draw out of that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because at least that. But you know what? Popular guy at the time. They wanted to see two gorillas going at it. You know, and they didn't think no one had any strategy. But what I see nowadays, Brady, is this. I see people running from their opponent, literally showing them their backs. I seen Conor McGregor do it a couple of times where he would run from his opponent like he ran from Diaz a couple of times.
Yeah, they say it's setting the feet, right?
I don't know if that's a strategy now where you run from your guy and then set yourself back up. But how is circling running from your guy when I'm staying right in front of him, but I'm circling?
That's true.
So how are kicks a bad thing when I'm kicking this guy's body, which is a strike? So now they're judging it a little different, which is cool. But you know, I didn't have the what is the words I'm looking for? I didn't have the pleasure of having good judges at the time who knew what strikes and who knew what downs and all that stuff was. So now they do.
Yeah, the judging has definitely changed. Like you said, kicking is a huge game changer nowadays. It can end with some of the best fighters in the world, like Conor. And you got to see that fight this weekend, correct?
Yeah, I saw most of it. And again, I thought, and it's all. Here's the funny thing about fighting someone you already fought. Yeah. They know weaknesses. They already know how you are in the ring. But see, someone has to evolve. And I think Poirier, and I keep butchering this man's name. But, yeah, I believe he evolved. And I don't, and what with Conor, I don't think he evolved because I don't think he worked on his wrestling. Maybe he worked on his wrestling, but that's something he hasn't shown the world that he worked on. Because if he had learned from any of his mistakes, was the wrestling was his biggest pet, Achilles heel.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? And of course everybody wants the big knockout, but when you're in this type of sport, everyone's evolving. And so Conor needs to evolve, and he needs to either defend the takedowns even more so, or he needs to start taking people down. So and initiate the takedowns instead of getting taken down and always dragging himself back to the cage, because that's the formula. Take him down, he goes to the cage, and you start working on him. And Khabib, I think Khabib gave everyone the formula to do so.
Yeah, I think Conor was. I actually picked Dustin to win that fight, and I think Conor will come back. I think he'd actually win the trilogy. I think Conor thrives in rematches. I think he'd win a trilogy, honestly, and I love Dustin.
But he has to defend the takedown, and exactly. Dustin seems like a better guy at taking people down. So man, look, and his boxing has gotten better. But what I did see in that fight, and this is what I do. I look at the fighter before they even get in the ring or when they get in the ring, and I look at their face. And I saw on Conor McGregor's face and that he was tired. He
did look, yeah.
Look, if you go back and look when they walk in the ring and they're standing there, the look on Conor's face, he looked tired. And when I looked over at Dustin's face, he looked like he was ready.
Yeah.
He was just ready. So again, sometime with fame and sometime with being pulled here left and right, and you got your family, you got all these different things going on, man, hey, you can only take so much before you get tired. And I really believe that he got tired.
As a fighter, people don't know this. You guys sleep. You guys could have a fight the next day after a weigh-in, and you could not have a good sleep, and that could ruin the whole fight. Am I correct? Like, people don't realize there's small things like that.
It's hard to sleep, the day before, man, because you get excited and you're ready to go, but you have to have that already in your game plan where a certain time you sleep. And those are the small things that help you be successful. You have to sleep. You have to eat right. You have to, you can't beat your body up before you even get in the ring. So I think a lot of people are taking those type of directions and not beating their body ups before the battle, because the battle's in the ring. The battle's not outside the ring; it's in the ring. But you still got to work on your timing. But you can't get beat up. You can't beat your body up physically or mentally before you get in the ring.
Yeah. So, in getting back to that, you fought at light heavyweight and heavyweight. Was there a specific? How was the cut for you for the 205 division?
Man, I didn't really have a cut, man. In all my career, I fought guys way heavier than me.
Yeah.
I fought guys, 250. I fought guys 300 pounds. But, and so when I fought Jardine and my manager called me and asked me if I wanted to fight him, my only concern was how much did he weigh?
Oh, for sure.
He said 205. I was like, shit, count me in. I don't care. I didn't care about any stature or anything like that. How much did he weigh? 205. Let's go. I didn't know who Jardine was, because I didn't follow UFC because I was too busy fighting to follow. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
and like you fought in some of the best, and you actually got to fight Jan Blockovich to see him win. To see him win the belt last year, did you ever expect him to be, I guess, the champion of the world? Like, did he seem that good at the time?
At the time, to me, he was average. He was average to me, like all fighters, because I still believe if I were to develop my style just a little bit more, I would have still been at that level. But you have to learn how to transition. But when we fought or especially over in Poland, you can't go over to someone's home field and give them home field advantage. So because that fight in itself was close too.
Yeah.
Because you can watch it and go, whoa, okay, if this didn't happen, where would we had been? But but I think what he did, he learned, because they brought people over for him to fight.
Yeah.
And he learned from each individual loss or win. And he had a pretty good coaching staff, man. You got to give it to him for his coaching staff. So he got in the position. He's battle tested, and he deserves what he gets in the end. Because he's a pretty good fighter. He's a pretty good fighter now, from what I see. But are you going to handle? Are you going to be able to handle someone like a style bender who he has to fight now? Are you going to be able to handle a guy who is your same height? You know what I'm saying? Who has speed and agility. So I think that's where he's going to be tested when you start fighting those top tier guys.
I think Stylebender.
If he beats the Stylebender, then he's legit.
Yeah, I think Stylebender is. I just think he's a bad matchup for Yuan. So.
Again, he's tough. He's tough, man. He's a tough guy. So we'll see. I don't think he's just gonna lay down for the Stylebender, but I think it's gonna be a tough fight.
It's gonna be a good one. So do you ever wish, like, looking back at how the UFC has evolved in MMA in general, do you wish that it was as popular, I guess, when you were coming into it? Would you switch it around if you could go into a career now, let's say? Or like, do you wish there was like a Conor McGregor back then, or there like? Well,
there was a Conor McGregor back then. There was a Chuck Liddell.
That is true. Tito Ortiz.
So what's the difference is from now to then, Brady, is this: social media. And UFC didn't start getting into the social media genre to right away. I was already, because to me, UFC the UFC was great to be in, but MMA was just a hobby to me. That I happened to do well. I was already doing commercial radio. I was already doing the acting stuff. I was already doing all this stuff already before I got into the UFC. I was already doing things outside of it. So I already had a career, and UFC just happened to be something that happened, and MMA just be something I was good at. So I think what it is the genre of social media that says change the game.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So without social media, like there wouldn't be many sports doing good anymore.
You
uh,
know, but you could put a little girl on social media. She get a whole bunch of followers, and she'll be relevant. She'll be relevant, and all she did was probably shit on herself. You know what I'm saying? Hey, this girl shitted on herself. She has millions of views of people her shitting on herself. See, that's how social media is now. So, and I was talking to Michael John White last night, and I think a lot of things are just given to people now. And are they earning it? Brady, are they earning those stripes they're getting, whether it be in football, basketball? Are people earning the stripes? Are they out? Are they in the trenches? Are they doing these things to earn their notoriety or to earn what they're doing?
like in general or as a sport?
Just in general, just in general.
In general, I think like for my example, for me,
Yeah.
I'm out here grinding. Like me and my friend have been having a podcast for the last 2 years, and we're trying to earn our stripes. So there's some people that have to earn it, like myself. I'm doing this from a YouTube podcast standpoint, and then there's people that can put out one video, they just hit that niche, right? And then
Exactly.
so
That's what I'm talking about. Because now you've been grinding for 2 years, and I don't. People don't know the phone calls you have to make, the situation you have to put together.
yeah,
Putting together a podcast after you get the actual interview. There's a lot of things that you have to do that a
yeah.
lot of people just go on there and just think it's just you grind. You're in the trenches, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and then some people are just giving it over. They can put out Conor McGregor falls out of the ring and they think it's real, and then they get 100 subscribers. I don't know.
Just think, you've been grinding for 2 years on your podcast.
Yeah,
If Conor McGregor started a podcast tomorrow, he would immediately get a million followers on his podcast platform because of who he is. You see what I'm saying? You've been
yeah,
grinding your ass off for 2 years, and Conor McGregor could just go on and tell people I'm doing a podcast and people will follow him. See, to me, that's not. He might have been grinding in the fight game, but he hasn't been grinding in the podcast game. So that to me, that's unfair.
yeah. I don't think it's fair either, and it's good to see like a lot of like. There's so many fighters doing podcasts now. Like, do you watch any of the fighters' podcasts?
You know what? One of the podcasts that are going to be starting up pretty soon is Don Fry. Don Fry is doing a podcast, and he's OG UFC. So you can imagine how many stories this guy has because he's been an announcer. He's been all over, and so it's going to be interesting to see Don Fry's podcast.
And for him, he doesn't have as much of a platform as when he was fighting, I guess you could say. So in
Yeah.
back to that situation where then you got Michael Bisping, who's a commentator, he's like, I'm going to do a podcast, and suddenly he's going to get more views, right? Because he has that platform given to him. He doesn't
Yeah.
have to.
But even though Don's been in the game longer.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
But also you got to give credit to Joe Rogan. Joe was
Yeah,
one of the first. He was one of the first guys to do podcasts as well. And I remember he invited me on his podcast long ago, and I couldn't make it. I couldn't make it out to L.A. to do his podcast when they were out in L.A. before. And then I'm shooting myself in the foot right now for that.
Oh
I
man,
can't even get Joe on the phone, man.
yeah, I'm busy. I got a couple more questions for you before I let you go. First of all, how was the Michael J. White podcast?
Well, Michael Jai White.
Michael J. White, sorry.
He'll correct you fast and furious. But yeah, man, because I've got of course I got a podcast that I started up, but my podcast is based off taking elements from different genres of culture. The
Yeah,
competitions, music, the fighting game, boxing game. We want to know everyone's perspective. So this my podcast called The Elements Live, and we just happened to have him on last night, and he had interesting takes on everything because he's a martial artist, he's a director, and it was great to see his take on a lot of things. And I think, but the most important thing I took from him because he's a teacher, and no one
yeah,
knows that he's a teacher. Um, how do you teach kids in the classroom that's had more life experience than the teachers.
That is true. I don't know the answer to that one.
You know, how do you listen to a teacher when probably at 10 years old, you've seen death, you've seen crap on the corners, you've seen the streets, and you've been in the streets, and the teachers who are bright-eyed and think they can change the world have no experience. So at 10 years old, you're looking at the teacher like, okay, I got more experience than you. I don't respect you. So you got to be that teacher that's lived a little bit. And that's basically what he was saying. You know, a lot of it. I took away from that crazy respect for him for the educational system and his frame of mind in education, because you know we can easily ask him about fighting and movies, but it was great to hear his perspective on education.
Yeah, I actually got to meet him. He was walking. Oh, I got to say hi to him. We were at I think it was a Comic Con, if I'm correct, and he walked by, and I got to shake his hand. So he seemed like a nice guy.
Oh man, he's a down to earth guy, man. You know what? He's 100% genuine, and that's something you don't see in Hollywood nowadays. I try to. And he did a movie called Black Dynamite. I said, and he's coming out with Black Dynamite too. I'm like, man, I don't care if I'm just walking across the street in the movie. I gotta have it, brother. But it's fun. He's a good guy, man, and he's one of the first guys to do the comic book character genre. You know, with Spawn.
Oh, Spawn. Oh, for sure. That's
and no one knows, and people forget, Brady, about Shaq doing the Steel character.
That is true. I didn't even think of that.
Steel was done right after Spawn. It was done. It came out 2 weeks after Spawn. So yeah, it's fun. I mentioned that last night. It's just funny to see that happen.
My last question for you is a big topic. Me and my buddy Marshall, he's actually a co-host of the show. Is
Marshall?
Sorry?
I said, I'm telling what's up, Marshall?
The Hall of Fame. We always debate with people of the UFC Hall of Fame. Yeah. I think it's a joke. I think it should be the MMA Hall of Fame. Let's say for boxing, you don't see the WBC Hall of Fame. You don't see the IBF Hall of Fame. Do you think it should be an MMA Hall of Fame? Because fighters like you yourself.
I actually agree with you on that. I think it should be an MMA Hall of Fame because not all great fighters were in the UFC. You had a lot of people in Pride. You had a lot of people who were in Pride. You have a lot of people who are in different organizations at the time that set the tone and set the precedent for MMA fighters today. So you got a lot of guys that Bruce Lee's and because to me Bruce Lee was one of the first ones to show that you can mix the martial arts up.
Oh, for sure.
He was one of the first ones that I remember seeing do that. Because if you look at some of the things he was doing, he was doing arm bars and Enter the Dragon. I saw him doing stuff like that in the 60s. So you got to have an MMA Hall of Fame because you want to acknowledge everyone, not just UFC fighters. Because UFC, even though UFC is right now the organization that everyone wants to go to make the money and get the notoriety, what about all the organizations that were there already putting it down and all the fighters that were in those organizations? So I think it does need you do need to have an MMA Hall of Fame.
And for that instance, like back in 2005, around that time, UFC was, to me, Pride was the biggest, bigger than the UFC.
Well, that's why UFC bought Pride out.
Exactly.
Eliminate the competition.
Absolutely. But so many fighters fought back then in like Pancrase, for example, and there was just so many organizations that fighters.
You had a Rampage. You had all those guys, Shogun, all those good guys that were in Pride at the time. So those guys ended up shifting over, but Pride had a lot of good fighters, man.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree with you. Yeah, I just wanted to get your take on that because we're all constantly arguing with people because they're like, it's a UFC Hall of Fame. And I want to say UFC's not a sport. Like,
UFC is not what we do. I tell people all the time, UFC is not what we do. MMA is what we do. MMA Hall of Fame all the way.
I totally agree with you. I really appreciate having you on the show. I hope to have you back sometime. Maybe we get Marshall
Man,
on
you
here.
can contact me anytime. But brother, I think the pandemic has got everybody on the same level playing field to where we're doing stuff like this, and I think it's good. It's good, man. Even though the pandemic has been bad with all the deaths and people getting sick,
Yeah.
there's been sparks of light like this where we can have conversations like this over the phone.
I've said that the pandemic has actually helped with a lot of reaching out to fighters and for your instance, probably actors and people that you've talked to, because they want to engage more because they need something to do, right? So it's actually helped. You got to look at the bright side of life sometimes, right?
You got to look at the bright side of life. And you know what? I was always told, by my Coach Alexander, Curly Alexander, keep living. You got to keep living, man. You have to keep living.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. So it's actually helped. You got to look at the bright side of life sometimes, right?
You got to look at the bright side of life. And you know what? I was always told, by my Coach Alexander, Curly Alexander, keep living. You got to keep living, man. You have to keep living.
Awesome. I really appreciate you having on. Again, we'll talk soon, and hopefully maybe we'll do some UFC predictions.
Hey, man, we can do that. And plus, for the audience, they can check out our podcast again, The Elements Live.
Let's say, do you have any sponsorships or anything you want to shout out before we go?
Yeah, the Elements Live, we usually do that on Facebook Live. You can follow me on all my social media sites at Houston Assassin or Houston Alexander. And just keep up with me. I also have my foundation, nonprofit foundation. It's called the Houston Alexander Foundation. So you might want to check that out at HoustonAlexander.org. And that's it, man. Just keep following me and keep up the good fight with your podcast, man. Keep putting in that work. Keep putting in that work. So one of these days we might be in Hollywood. I might be on your podcast and not Joe Rogan.
Absolutely. We got to take over the game.
Hey, man, keep plugging away, man.
Awesome. Thank you.